Hello, Tracy here. Welcome to another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm going to be scrapbooking these two photos, although they didn't print very well because my print head was clogged and dirty, probably from not using it very much. So while I get started, I'm just going to clean those print heads and show you guys some of the products that I'm going to be working with today. So I have here the Hip Kit Club July kit. And if you subscribe to this kit, you probably already have it, but if you don't, you can pick it up at their shop, hipkitclub.net. And I do have a unboxing video that is either the one right before this or the one right after this on my channel. I really love sharing unboxing videos with you guys because it gives me a chance to really familiarize myself with the products that I'm going to be using for the month. So yes, here is the products, and I'm using the I made a challenge over on MercyTiara's 27-day challenge Facebook group, which is the Facebook group that I started many years ago, and it's been kind of going on without me for the past several years, but I decided it was the first of the month and I decided to revisit the challenge idea of that group. And so I have a challenge which is it's an either or challenge, so you have to use either ledger paper or wood grain for your background. You have to include in your layers either insects or flowers, and you have to use either enamel dots or splatter. And so those are the requirements that I'm trying to meet here today. And as you can see, I pulled out, and I'm kind of doing multiple things at once here and chatting with my Patreons, because I do create real-time unedited videos for my Patreon feed. So if you're interested in those kind of not sped up and me just kind of chatting as I work videos, head on over there and check that out. I did print these photos a little bit smaller once my printer did finish cleaning its print heads. I printed them up at 3x5 instead of 4x6 because I felt like the two photos were just taking up a little bit too much real estate on my page, and this gives me a little bit more room for some embellishments. And so at this point, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do. I never know. If I ever have a sense, I usually say at the very beginning. I'm using my Fiskars trimmer here. This isn't my favorite trimmer because it's one of those ones that just drags a blade across. It's not the greatest. I need to change my blade, but I'm just too eager to scrapbook here, so I just left it, even though, as you can see, it's a bit of a torn edge at the bottom there. That trimmer trims quite well as long as you keep the blade nice and sharp. I just find that it does get dull pretty quickly compared to a rotary trimmer. So what I want to do here is use this wicker circular piece as a background for my layout. And I like the idea of kind of going with a tone on tone where it's on the wood grain background. It's kind of like a wood plank photorealistic background paper. And I really like that. I also really like the idea of using this on a colorful background. So because this chipboard piece actually comes with a couple of different, like it comes with the circles on one side, and then it also comes, I'll show later, with hexagons on the other side. This is called chipboard frames, and this is a Hip Kit Club exclusive. I believe all of the items in this month's kit are exclusive to the Hip Kit Club, so you're not going to find this stuff in any stores anywhere, so head on over to the website. This sounds like a sponsored video, but it isn't. I just really like the Hip Kit Club. They used to sponsor my channel, but I've been just subscribing since I'm not scrapbooking as often. I'm not doing a sponsorship or anything like that. So as you can see, I'm using the background piece, which I'm not sure if it was kind of, it looks like it was designed so that you could use it this way. And I'm kind of using it to structure, and then I'm just placing all those circles back, and I'm just leaving out those little in-between rings so that it kind of has this layered concentric circle kind of look to it. Oh, there are the hexagons showed up there. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of wishing that the circles went higher instead of just being straight across in a horizontal way. And so what I'm thinking about doing here is actually cutting up this circular piece, especially the parts that are going to be covered by my photos, and pulling them up so that I can have some around. See what I'm doing with my hands there? I want the circles to take that kind of a shape. So to start with, I'm just going to tape my photos together so that I can move them freely and they don't kind of overlap one another, so I know what size they're going to be. I'm just making some little pencil marks here to show myself where these photos are going to go so that I can safely cut pieces and not have to worry about regretting it. I end up cutting one that I shouldn't have, but yeah, we'll get back to that. I'm making a couple of mistakes here. So this is the piece I'm going to regret cutting, but it's okay. I can piece it back together again when I need to. And so I'm just kind of using, these are my heavy duty scissors. They cut through thicker things than my American Crafts gold scissors that I usually use on my channel. And I use these for opening boxes and things that I don't want to worry about hurting my scissors for. So as you can see, this gives me an extra little piece, and I'm just going to cut it so that it looks more finished. So I just kind of smoothed out that edge there. And I'm gonna cut that piece off and use this, and I'm gonna make a mistake here because what I'm doing here is I'm kind of going on the assumption that maybe I won't add a whole bunch of layers behind my photos, but who am I kidding? I always layer at least a couple of pattern papers behind my photos. So I'm doing all of this to figure out how I can make it look more like the circles follow the lines of my photos. And then I'm going to decide to use some layers, and this is all going to have to be done all over again. That's okay. That's part of the process. I do like how that looks, but it's a little plain. And I'd like to get some butterflies on this layout because that's part of the challenge, is to include either insects or flowers. And there happens to be both. I wasn't thinking of that when I made this challenge, but there happens to be both flowers and butterflies in this kit. So you could use this kit and meet the criteria for the challenge, except for the very last one you'd have to go into your stash for. I'm going to save these for another layout. This set of wood veneers, they're wood veneer embellishments, they're called by this Hip Kit Club. They have one that says, what does that say? It says getting out. And because this is one of our first outings after the second lockdown, it's the third wave, our second lockdown, I wanted to get that on the page, but I don't want it to be wood veneer because there's an awful lot of beige in my background between the wood grain paper and all of those hoops that I have on there. I just want something that is more bright and colorful. So I'm looking for, I kind of matched it up to my shirt there. I'm looking for a blue, I'm looking for cornflower blue in my zig color, what are those called? Oh, I have it right here. Clean color real brush markers. But I'm just testing it on a little scrap of wood grain, and wow, that comes out super dark, and I don't want it super dark. So then I went with this other color, which is called cobalt blue. It's number 31. And I quite like how that looks. And it picks up on some of the colors in that Halifax sign behind us. And also I'm matting my photo on this pattern paper. First of all, this kind of beige neutral paper, just to give my photos a little bit of breathing space. And then I'm going to use this really beautiful striped colored pattern paper, but I specifically selected a part of it that has a lot of the blue. So there's the blue up in the top left hand corner, but there's also the blue strip along the bottom as well. I just wanted to make sure I got lots of blue. Of course, now that I have my photos matted on pattern paper, as you can see, I have to pull off a lot of these embellishments because I'm going to have to space them out a little bit differently so that you can actually see them. So I'm using, those are Stampin' Up dimensional adhesive, which is my favorite adhesive. It can be a little pricey though, so I have bought a roll of this Scotch double-sided foam tape that I use on bigger sections just to spare myself the expense of having to buy more Stampin' Up dimensional adhesive. And now that I'm not sponsored, I have to be more frugal with these things. So now I have to kind of start all over again with deciding where all of these pieces are going to go. Now, because I'm shifting these around, the grain of the wicker on those pieces doesn't line up exactly the same as the grain on the other background piece, but that's okay. I don't think you're going to look all that closely at it. And I'm just kind of trying to make it look loopy, and like this makeshift part is matching up as much as I can with the manufactured part. It's not exactly the same, but I was trying to choose like lighter colored parts for my outer edge so that it kind of coordinates a little bit better with the main part, which has a lighter kind of wicker for the outer edge. And I don't want these to overlap because it's going to get too bulky, so I'm just trimming off different parts to help with that. Some of these pieces I pulled off in such a way that there was no adhesive backing on them, so I had to use my glue. And now I accidentally pressed pause for a very long time as I picked out my butterflies and those mandala acetate pieces. So I apologize that a big portion is missing here, but one part that is missing is where I was kind of putting in those butterflies, and then I noticed that I could use that they were emerging kind of like we are. They're emerging from the layers. And I also started thinking about how butterflies emerge from a pupa or a chrysalis, or I don't know exactly the terminology. But I thought that even though I was really using the butterflies out of convenience because they're in the kit and they're part of the challenge, it ended up working really well with the story I wanted to tell. So given everything that's going on here, I decided I wanted to use black block letters. I wanted to not use anything too scripty to compete with the word Halifax, and I wanted it to be small also to not compete with the word Halifax. I don't like having lots of large words on my pages, and so if there's a large word in my photo, I'm going to want my title to be smaller. That's just a me thing. It's not like a rule or anything, but I just like how that looks. So one thing that I missed here was talking about those acetate pieces. So you see those black mandala acetates? Those came in the kit. They're called acetate mandalas, and I'm basically tucking them in under the butterflies. I haven't glued them down yet. You'll see when I do that. They're basically there to, and there I am kind of looking up what is the word for when a butterfly comes out of its chrysalis, and the word is it's something else, but another word for it is emerge. And so I decided to entitle this Emerge, and that directly comes from the stuff that I looked up about butterflies. It's also it's called emergence. And so at first I was going to call it emergence, but that's too big of a word. I didn't want it to take up so much space. So I decided to go with emerge. I think emerge feels better too as a title. Right, so I was talking about the mandalas. So those black mandalas, basically they provide a little bit of anchoring for those butterflies. It provides some interest. It helps your eye move around the page and know what to look at. And it just adds some detail as well. And it's nice to have repetition going on your page as well. So the Hip Kit Club is making these border strips, which I adore. I have been wanting manufacturers to go back to making border strips for a couple of years now. They used to make border strips for every or almost every collection that you could buy, along with, like the chipboard pieces and the die cuts. You could always get either border stickers or border strips, and I really miss that. And I'm so happy to see that it seems to be coming back around as a trend. So that's great. Good for me, because I've missed these. So I want this word emerge to kind of look like it's emerging from my layers as well. So I'm going to stick this little strip. The strip is going to provide some anchoring, a little home for my title, so it doesn't look like it's just kind of floating there in the middle of my layout. And it also looks like it's emerging from the layers, just like my butterflies are. I did kind of pull up the edges of it just to give it a little bit more dimension. That will cast a little bit of a shadow and create a little bit more interest and texture on my page. And I wanted to continue that border strip so that it looked like it went all the way under and continues to pop out on the other side. So I'm just kind of messing around a little bit with the placement and use my Tombow glue runner to do that. Here I'm committing to using these mandalas now. I wasn't sure that I was going to use them, but once the page all came together, I thought, yep, I do kind of like what they add to the page, except this one, it's too big and bulky for that particular butterfly. So I took the other edge that sticks out from the moth up in the top right-hand corner, and I'm just going to stick it down here. I'm trying not to think too much about the fact that you don't see the other side of it, and logically you would at least see bits of it peeking out in the rings, between the rings. I'm just going to pretend that I don't notice that because I like how it looks from a design perspective where it is. So I'm just going to, not be too focused on perfectionism here and just let this page be what it is. I'm going to trim down the little bits there that go off the edge of the page so that this will fit nicely into my scrapbook page protector. And so now I'm thinking about what my journaling is going to be and how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to put it right here. And because there are lines on the page already with the wood grain, I'm able to just kind of freehand my journaling. I am pre-writing it out in pencil just because too many things went wrong, from my camera to my software to my printer, that I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do these out ahead of time. So now I'm going over it with my Sharpie pen. This is a Sharpie pen, not a Sharpie marker. So Sharpie markers are slick surface markers, and they will bleed on regular paper for the most part. My journaling says, as the world gradually adjusts to its new normal, we are starting to go out to our favorite places. The Halifax waterfront has changed over the 18 months. And, that's all I'm saying. So now because I wrote over my already kind of written out pencil marks, I have to go back and very, very, very gently erase those pencil marks. Be very careful about what eraser you use when you do this. So I'm using a white eraser, and also be careful with what pen you use. So the Sharpie pen works very well in that it doesn't smudge when you very lightly erase. And also the Zig Writer works very well too, which I had up on the screen there for a second. My Zig Writer is all dried out. I just keep it on hand to show you for videos. Then I'm just going to underline my journaling to make it feel kind of anchored on the page and like it belongs. I hand wrote the date right down there, just July 2021. And the last detail is I needed either like spray splatter, or I needed enamel dots. And I decided to go with enamel dots. And I decided to go with navy blue just to give it a little bit more. And I almost forgot about that word, which I colored in with that cobalt blue marker. So I put that there. And then I realized something that is not all that surprising, which is that I don't really want to have one of those. I really should have three. So this one says just chillin'. And then this one that I'm coloring in says sunshine. And I'm just using the edge of my marker to do that so that the marker ink goes onto the rectangle of the wood veneer, but it doesn't go into the little debossed words like letters, so that you can read it. Hopefully it will come up in my close-up photos when I do that. So I'm not terribly confident with my placement of enamel dots. I never really have been, but I'm just putting them. I knew I wanted them in the 3 different clusters of embellishments, and a cluster of 3 of different sizes is pretty easy to go with. And then one of them I just made a 2 just because I like to mix it up a little bit. So here are the close-ups of this page. It came together quite nicely. See, I think you can see the wood veneer there. How you can actually read it. I use the side of my marker to swipe the ink over that. So this was a really fun page to create. I love working with kits again. I just adore the Hip Kit Club. I've been subscribing for a couple months, and they've been supporting my channel for a really long time. So if you like these products and don't subscribe already, please hop on over there and check out their kits. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.